I don't think I spelled all this out for you. Bear in mind, back in Albuquerque, New Mexico, there's a place, as far as I'm aware, it still exists. I think it's been revamped or overhauled a number of times. But the Natural History Museum, and I used to really like it. My mom was very sweet. I had a lot of dinosaur wallpaper, and my mom would make me plush toy dinosaur things when I was little. And I used to think I could go in the backyard and maybe find some dinosaur fossils. I mean, we're all indoctrinated under the same fucking umbrella of bullshit. This is propaganda through and through. This post has been circulated by 20 people who have misled, or were misled is what I'm driving at. 405 saw it at least. But if you look down at the bottom, I mean, I know some of the people in here, crudely speaking, but 98,000 others follow this garbage, which is terrifying. Here's what I left in here. Let's see if it's still at the top of the stack. Lately, they have not been falling to the bottom of the stack, which is questionable. Naturally, above what I just left in here from 2 hours ago, for some reason, we have, we saw the, and then there's some emojis in there. Why is that above my comment? I don't know. Nobody liked it. Probably shouldn't be. That's questionable. But that's also how this shit works. So he said, Jurassic propaganda for retards. That's the short version. Here's the long version. It's laughable how many pseudo-intellectual retards claim that they're scientists, and that's not the proper usage of their, and that's my fault for talking at fucking Google. I am being lazy tonight. Full transparency. I fucked that up. In terms of setting an example for others so that we can cultivate the best and the brightest, I fucked that up. I want you guys to appreciate that. Even though they don't understand what I mean when I stress replicable evidence-based research. Some of you have heard me say that a lot. And anybody you've ever heard waxing poetic about science, that's what they should be talking about. But you can tell people that. And they can't reason things out on their own. In other words, they're not scientists. They're not thinking in terms of anything under the banner of what science once stood for, allegedly. Because if they were, on the spot, they could use their brain in real time and figure out what replicable, evidence-based research refers to. Not to mention, you and I are carrying around surveillance tools. Yeah, namely a cellular device, a cell phone. You sign up for a plan, you get a free cell phone. That's how they roped idiots in, myself included. You could use it as a tool. You could look up each one of those words individually and then connect the dots, compare and contrast and try to figure out, what does this mean? But people don't do that. They react. Instead of thinking, they react. What I just said is ironic because that's why people circulate this propaganda. They're not thinking, they're reacting. They're marching in lockstep with their horse blinders on. Yes, this is one of the many examples. I'm highlighting pseudo-intellectuals who are not worth their salt, who are fucking everything up for you and I alike. Back to point. The point I was driving at is what I just outlined, replicable evidence-based research, is the scientific method by definition. Poorly put. Gets the point across, if you think about it. And well, it should say in stark contrast, I fucked that up too, to trust the science, scream science at the top of your lungs at the sky, repeat what controlled opposition assets spoon-fed you, and dress up as quote-unquote, it should say unquote, didn't do it, science! In other words, and there should be a comma again, repeating verbatim adult fairy tales based on popular opinion and hearsay. There is zero credible evidence to prove that giant lizards, referred to as dinosaurs, superficially speaking, mind you, dinosaurs is a new term in the scheme of history. You might have heard of dragons and other things like that. Okay, that's fine. But what's dressed up as dinosaurs, the shape, the archetypal, patterns behind, a Stegosaurus, a Tyrannosaurus, a Triceratops. You've probably heard some of these. Plesiosaur, pterodactyl. Yeah, I know some of the names. And there's no proof to back any of that shit up. None. Whatsoever. All right, so there is zero credible evidence to prove that giant lizards, referred to as dinosaurs, superficially speaking, they never walked this rock. Repeating garbage like this is just as dumb as believing in aliens. In fact, our masters have outlined numerous times over, and once again, I forgot the name of, it's a CIA, I think he was a former CIA operator, director, probably be CIA director, who stated something to the effect of the goal, and this is the Alphabet Agency, the goal is to train the masses, essentially, to repeat things that do not reflect reality. Absolutely. In other words, everything you believe and you repeat does not have any bearing on reality at all. In other words, you and I would be dumbed down to such a point that we wouldn't question these things. We couldn't realize that what we believe and what we repeat is absolute horseshit, disharmonious, disconnected, pointless slop only a fucking retard would repeat. And yet, here we are. This is a post targeted at retards. If you look up at the top, you see Xfinity. That's something that wouldn't exist if you and I were surrounded by smart people. It's not a Ponzi scheme, but it is a fucking racket. It's what people would call a monopoly. Bear in mind, none of this is for the people, by the people. The internet's disharmonious system, which is piggybacking and bastardizing the ether, which quite literally has to do with how you and I function as well, which is very telling about where this is going in terms of merging man with machine, which is why we're told that we're all connected, why we were trained to carry around, credit cards with RFID chips. So when you go through the register, you ask, do I use my chip? These are red flags. Those are old red flags, but I don't know anybody who understands this because people aren't paying attention. Most people believe in dinosaurs.